I heard that we have flowers up here because there's another great grandbaby for Janie, right? Is that right? And another grandbaby for Christy up there. So, yay! I got to see a picture of that. I asked her if the grandbaby already knows how to sing "Jesus Loves Me." Start teaching him that right away. We'll need him up here soon. I'm trying not to let these flowers. Hey, I can see you now. I don't mind them here. I won't knock them over. I just want to be able to see y'all. So today we're going to start back in our Gospel of Mark series that we were in. For the last couple of weeks, we had focused, because of the holidays, focused on the fact that Jesus came to break down the walls, to tear down the barriers that keep people from drawing near to God. And last week especially, we were looking at the fact that fear seems to be a big one, a big reason why people don't draw near to God, because of fear. And a lot of that we saw had to do with fear of the unknown. If they really knew God, they wouldn't run away, they would run toward it. It's really true if you really understood God. And when I say fear, of course I'm talking about terrifying, oh no, I'm in trouble fear. That's the one that God doesn't want us to be filled with. Awe, the kind of fear, unfortunately it's the same word, but awe, amazement, that kind of wonder, that kind of fear, that's good fear. And it's right. But fear that causes us to run away from God, we saw in Isaiah, that's not what God wanted. We saw it in Adam, it's not what God wanted. In fact, we saw that the first thing God did in both of those circumstances, when they were fearing and trembling in his presence, the first thing he did was do something to take away that fear. He dealt with the issues that were causing the fear. So that tells us something about God. It tells us he doesn't want us to have that kind of fear in his presence. Fear, perfect love drives out fear, we read. And so it's good that we did those things. They're not isolated from the Gospel of Mark study. In fact, what we found in the Gospel of Mark so far is that people just don't know God. Do you remember that? You remember everything he does, that people are fighting against? And even his own disciples don't understand what he's doing. It's like, they just don't get it. And so through 10 chapters of Mark, we've been spending all this time where Jesus is trying to show people who God is. That's what he came to be, God with us, God among us. He came to reveal the Father. That's what John says. No one has ever seen God, but God, the only begotten, has exegeted him, has revealed him, brought out from what is unseen to make it seen. That's what Jesus does. He has come so we can see God more clearly. And that's why I chose these monkeys. This is a picture everybody knows, right? You've seen this picture one time or another, right? It's a familiar picture? Yeah. I just chose it because now, speak no evil, see no evil, hear no evil. That part's not true about humanity. It's not true about the people of Jesus' time. I could have cut that off, but the real problem, what we find in the Gospel of Mark, is because they don't see God properly, the people Jesus is dealing with, they're not able to hear any truth. They can't see any truth, and it's keeping them from being able to speak any truth. That's been the situation, and I'll say more about that. But fortunately, where we are in the Gospel of Mark, we've come to a story of a blind man. Perfect. Because blindness is a huge issue in the Gospel of Mark. So we've come to a story of a blind man. It's the story of blind Bartimaeus. You know that story? Anybody remember blind Bartimaeus? And we've done 10 chapters. There's a strange thing going on here. So I want to spend time today looking at the story and trying to figure out what in the world is Mark doing here? Why is this the place to put a story of a blind guy? Because for almost 10 full chapters, like all the way up to chapter 10:45, out of just 52 verses. All of that has been Jesus trying to reveal, trying to show them who he is, who Messiah is. Remember, they were expecting Messiah to come, and now he came. But he's not the one they were expecting. If you've been with me through this, they're expecting a conquering king like David. They want him to come in and establish Jerusalem and establish the temple and kick out the Romans, and it's all about us Jews, and that's what they're looking for. And so for 10 chapters, he's trying to reveal the Messiah, and for 10 chapters, nobody's getting it. Everybody's blind. And he tells them, we know his family thinks he's crazy. They come to collect him. He's not crazy. We know that his synagogue rejects him and they don't want to hear from him. In the other Gospels, they tell us they drove him up a cliff and wanted to throw him over, wanted to kill him. We know the religious leaders are calling him a blasphemer. They're calling him from Satan. They're saying he breaks the rules of the Sabbath. Nobody can see who Jesus is, even his own disciples. 3 times while Jesus is saying, this is what's going to happen to Messiah. I'm going to Jerusalem. That's where they're going to reject me and kill me. 3 times in the last 3 chapters, 8, 9, and 10. And every time, like he says, who do men say that I am? And of course, everybody doesn't know. They're like, well, John the Baptist risen. Maybe Elijah came back. Maybe one of the prophets came back. Nobody knows. Okay, but what about you? Do you know? Well, yeah, you're the Messiah. He starts telling him he's going to die, and Peter rebukes him. So chapter 8, this is what's going to happen to Messiah. Peter rebukes him. Chapter 9, this is what's going to happen to Messiah. While the disciples are saying, who's the greatest in the kingdom? They're arguing about who's the greatest. Jesus says, I'm going to die. I'm going to offer my life. They're going to kill me. Disciples, yay, I think I'm better than you. Who's the greatest? Chapter 10, Jesus says, this is what it's all about. I'm going to Jerusalem. They're going to kill me. While James and John have decided everybody else are losers, we should be the top dogs. I should sit on your left. He should sit on your right. We get the highest places of honor, the highest places of power. That's us. While Jesus is saying in the theme statement of the Gospel of Mark, the climax of 10 chapters where Jesus says in 10:45, for the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life a ransom for many. There's the statement. There's his declaration. This is what Messiah is all about. This is what I've come to do. I'm on this path, we call it kenosis. It's self-emptying. I'm going to give my life for everybody else. That's the path I'm on. While the disciples the whole time were trying to get up here. So really, from Mark chapter 1:1 all the way to 10:45, that's sort of the first book of Mark, like the first segment. And it comes to a climax with Jesus saying, this is what it's all about. And then, that's chapter 10, and then chapter 11 begins, Jesus is going up in Jerusalem. It's the beginning of sort of the end and then the beginning again, right? But he's heading into Jerusalem. We call it the triumphal entry, and then he's going to curse the fig tree, and he's going to cleanse the temple, and he's bringing judgment on a nation that can't see God. They've lost track. They're way off track. And he's going to come to them, and he's bringing judgment, and then they're going to kill him for it. That's all about to happen. That's the second book. Like the final week of Jesus' life before they crucify him, that's Mark 11 through 16. So you've got 2 books of Mark. You got this first one that climaxes with, this is who I am as the Messiah. And then you got the second book, which is what happens in Jerusalem the whole last week, the Passion. And so why is it that right between these 2 books, we get a story of a blind guy? Like, what's he doing there? There's all kinds of healings that go on, but this one seems to be like stuck right here between these 2 major parts of Mark. And so I think we need to figure that out. Like, there's more going on in this story than just a healing of a blind guy. Okay? So let's read it, and then we'll go through it and try to talk about it. So it says, they came to Jericho. As Jesus and his disciples, together with a large crowd, were leaving the city, a blind man, Bartimaeus, which means son of Timaeus, was sitting by the roadside begging. Many rebuked him and told him to be quiet, but he shouted all the more, "Son of David, have mercy on me." Jesus stopped and said, "Call him." So they called to the blind man, "Cheer up, on your feet, he's calling you." Throwing his cloak aside, he jumped to his feet and came to Jesus. "What do you want me to do for you?" Jesus asked him. The blind man said, "Rabbi, I want to see." "Go," said Jesus, "your faith has healed you." Immediately he received his sight and followed Jesus along the road. So there's the story. It's a story set right between the first and second parts of Mark. And so it's a story about a blind guy. Well, did we need another story about a blind guy? We've got a story about a blind guy already. What are we learning from the story? Jesus can heal a blind guy. Well, that's good, but we had that in Mark 8. Remember the guy who was blind, and then Jesus healed him, and he could see blurry, and then he healed him again. He could see clearly. He could heal a blind guy. We already know that. He showed mercy on this guy. Well, how many people has Jesus shown mercy on throughout the text? And so why do we have another story about a blind guy, right? And so want to pull on that. Like, what's Mark doing? Mark is the shortest gospel. Mark is 16 chapters. John is 21. Luke is 24. Matthew's 28. Mark packs everything into this smaller gospel, and every single detail is important. Everything he's going to show us is part of the case he's trying to build for Jesus. So we've got to ask ourselves, what in the world is this story of the blind guy thrown right here? After all of this climactic statement and before all the things are going to happen in Jerusalem, we've got this sort of hinge, the whole gospel sort of focuses on it all, something right here in Bartimaeus. So second healing of a blind man, like how many lepers? I know it says Jesus healed a bunch of people, but in terms of occasions, accounts where Jesus meets somebody and heals them, how many lepers, if you've been with us, did Jesus heal? Anybody remember? Yeah, just one. How many paralytics? Just one. How many, there's a guy with a withered hand. Different sort of thing, a withered hand. This guy's paralytic. How many dead girls did he raise? Just one. How many women with the issue of bleeding for 12 years? Just one. How many guys possessed with a legion of demons? Just one. How many guys who have something that throws them down in the fire? So there's sort of something going on there, but it's a different sort of thing. One guy's running around the tombs all crazy and breaking chains. This guy just throws him down in the fire. One of those. I'm not sure how there's something going on that may be similar, but just one of those. Canaanite daughter up in Sidon and Tyre. How many of those? Gentile Canaanite daughter. Just one. I don't even know what was wrong with her, but there's just one of those kind of occasions. Coming down along the outside of the Sea of Galilee, in the Gentile cities, the Decapolis, how many people who had to have Jesus stick his fingers in their ears to fix how they heard and spoke? How many of those? Just one. Then there was one blind man who couldn't see, and then he could see blurry, and then he could see. There's just one of those. You understand? Just one. Mark hadn't got room for more. He hadn't got time for more. Bam, 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 bam. There's one of each. All kinds of healings. There's one of each. How many mother-in-laws were healed? Just one. In terms of now among the masses that he healed, maybe there were some other mother-in-laws, right? But in talking about, well, this one was healed and that one was healed, that one's just one. And then here we have a second blind man. So there's something going on here. There's a reason for it. And we want to know that reason. It's not just, Jesus, listen, I'm not minimizing. Jesus can heal a blind man. That is amazing. I don't want to minimize that. Jesus has mercy on this guy, right? I don't want to minimize that. That's all awesome. But we've already made that point in this gospel over and over, okay? So what is going on here? Then there's this mention of Jericho. This is weird when we read the scripture. Just look at this for a second. Then they came to Jericho, as Jesus and his disciples, together with a large crowd, were leaving the city. That begs a question for me. I don't know about you. What happened in the city? Something happened. He gained a large crowd in the city of Jericho. What happened in there? Anybody know? I don't know. Something happened. What happened? I don't know. Whatever it is, Mark didn't think to include it. He doesn't tell us anything about that. In fact, why even mention Jericho? Because leaving Jericho, he's on his way up into Jerusalem. He's going to go up the hill into Jerusalem. And so, don't even mention Jericho and whatever didn't happen and somehow a large crowd. Just tell us, and as he began to go up into Jerusalem, why don't we just start chapter 11 already? As he was going up into Jerusalem, there was a blind guy. Why don't we just do that? You understand? Like why are we even telling us about Jericho? Because he's not even telling us what happened there. And so if you're not going to tell me anything about Jericho, maybe you're relying on my mind to remind me of Jericho. What do you think about when you think about Jericho? Especially if you're a Jew. When we first started the gospel, I thought about it when Jesus was baptized. He was baptized at a place near Jericho. As you're coming through, the very place where Joshua brought all the people through the Jordan River. Where you come through, and the first city you're going to come to is Jericho. What are the Jews thinking when they think of Jericho? Isn't that the first city you got to conquer if you're going to enter the land? Is Jesus about to conquer a city in a sort of way? Is he going into Jerusalem to conquer? Maybe not a physical city, but is he going there to conquer, to win a victory? He is. It's just true. Are they related? I don't know. But there is a Jericho happening. Jesus is about to open up the way for people to inherit the land, the promised land. Is that right? Don't we think about coming into Christ as being brought into the promised land? Being saved in Christ? There's one more thing I think about Jericho. Anybody? There was a Gentile, pretty prominent Gentile from Jericho. The only one whose family was saved out of Jericho. What's her name? Rahab. Became David's great-great-grandma or something. Jesus' great-great-great-great-grandma. In the lineage of Jesus, Jericho reminds of not only the promised lands being opened up, all those forces are being destroyed to open the promised land, but also Gentiles. Now, just reading this text, maybe it doesn't seem significant, but one of the main things Jesus was trying to teach his disciples in the master class was that God is not sending the Messiah to beat up the Gentiles. That God has come to save Gentiles too. And his ministry was devoted to that, a large part of it. And so, is it just a coincidence? I don't know. But as I'm reading the story of the blind guy, I'm starting to think more globally about what's going on here. There's developing sort of a picture of what's coming. Sort of the entire story of Jesus came to the Jews. They reject him. He's going to die. All of this is starting to build into, hey, there's something else going on here. And then they came to Jericho. Jesus' disciples together, a large crowd were leaving the city. A blind man, Bartimaeus, which means son of Timaeus, was sitting by the roadside begging. You know what's weird about that? What was that leper's name? Anybody remember? Or the woman with the bleeding, what was her name? Or the blind man? What was that one blind man who was the blurry? What was his name? What was the child's name up in the Sidon? How about we know Jairus. Yeah, but he's not the one that was healed. What was that daughter's name? No. The paralytic, what was his name? No. Withered hand? No. Peter's mother-in-law, what was her name? No. Nobody? This is the only named person in the Gospel of Mark that Jesus healed. Well, wait a minute. Later in the Gospel, Peter's going to cut off the high priest's servant's ear. What's his name? You should know it. It's Malchus. But you won't find it in the Gospel of Mark. We're told that in John. We're told Peter cut off his ear. We're told, I think we're told Jesus healed him. We're told he's the high priest's servant. But Mark doesn't tell us it's Malchus. You find that interesting? Like Jesus heals, I don't know, it seems like a dozen different people from different problems. We don't know any of their names. But we know this guy's name. This guy whose story is strangely between these two works of Mark, the beginning, all these chapters, and then the ending of what's going to happen in Jerusalem. And here's this guy's story. And we happen to know this guy's name. Is that just a coincidence? I mean, maybe, but doesn't seem like it. The only one healed who's named, but also his name. Bartimaeus, Bar-Jonah. What does that mean? Son of Jonah. Bartholomew is son of Ptolemy. Bar mitzvah. You ever heard bar mitzvah? Son of the command. That's what it means. Mitzvah is command. Son of the commandment. That's what it means. You're 13, you become an adult, you become a man, and now you're responsible to the law. For them, that's like age of accountability or something. Son of the bar mitzvah, bar Jonah. Bartimaeus. Well, the bar part is Aramaic. It's from the Jewish side. But Timaeus, does that sound like a Jewish name? Timaeus? No, it's a Greek name. So here we have a blind guy. It's a weird story put right here in this place, and we know his name, and it happens to be Jew and Greek. Is it just a coincidence that Jesus' ministry, although fought against tooth and nail by everybody, even his own disciples, is it just a coincidence that this guy's Jewish and Greek, and Jesus' ministry been trying to say God loves the Gentiles too? Is that just coincidence? There's a bunch of coincidences that started piling up here. Or is it true that what's going to happen in Jerusalem is going to be for Jew and Greek? That the Messiah has come to save all. That the angels who brought, glad tidings of great joy that'll be for all people. Right? Or maybe it's just coincidence. Bartimaeus, son of Timaeus. Timaeus means son. Bartimaeus means son of the honored one. Now again, that could just mean like maybe they knew who that's talking about. But we still got to deal with the fact that he's the only one named, and for some reason we get a second blind man story, and it's placed in a weird spot between these two works of Mark. Like, so is there some other thing he's trying to tell us? Is there some other meaning? Son of the honored one. Son of the honored one whose life has been crashed, shipwrecked, who's set aside of the road in darkness. Anybody hearing any spiritual themes about humanity? Could he, the son of Seth, the son of Adam, the son of God, all humanity, God's son, all humanity crashed in the darkness on the side of the road. Or what about Abraham? Maybe Abraham's the one in view. He's a son of Abraham. Often that's said, right? Like, hey, he's a son of Abraham. We should treat him okay, right? Maybe Abraham's in view. But either way, there's something global happening. There's something bigger than the story right here happening. And that shouldn't surprise us. If we go back to that leper and look through all the stories, those stories are not, we've said this over and over, those stories are not just about Jesus healing the guy. How do we know it with the leper? Anybody remember? How do we know it's not just about healing the guy's leprosy? What did Jesus do to heal him? He touched him. That's huge. He could have healed him from anywhere, but he touched him. And what did Jesus do when he healed the paralytic? Did he just heal him? He said, your sins are forgiven. Right? When he's dealing with the woman who's a Gentile, who the disciples are thinking, you're not supposed to help her. We're not bringing her to you until she's driving us nuts. And he's making a statement to them because they think it's wrong to help her, but he's going to help her, and he does. He's teaching him something. When he goes and he sticks his finger in the guy's ears to open up his mouth and his ears, and he gives this deep sigh, it's not because that guy's done anything wrong. That guy came in faith. It's a Gentile coming to a Jewish rabbi hoping for healing. He's not sighing because that guy's a mess. He's sighing because his disciples aren't getting it. And he tells them it in the next chapter where he sighs again. And he says, having ears, do you not hear? Having eyes, do you not see? All of these healings, or at least virtually all of them, there's a meta-narrative. There's something else going on. There's sort of an indictment going on where Jesus is trying to say, look, I'm not just doing this, I'm trying to help you. That's why we called it a master class. He was trying to teach his disciples something about God in all of that. And so to look at this story and look at it more globally is exactly what's been happening in the Gospel of Mark all along. And then we find him sitting by the roadside, and I've already said this. I knew when I was putting all these slides together that I'm going to get off track and say more than I can't stay with it. I just want to speak without notes. But anyway, he's sitting by the roadside, and I just want you to let that sink in. What's his quality of life like? He's a blind man. He's sitting by the roadside. Really can't work. Has to beg. He's not enjoying life like people do. He doesn't seem like he has a family. At least if he does, he can't support them. Doesn't seem like he has a job. He just has to sit there and beg. His life is crashed on the side of the road. And so there he is on the side of the road begging. That's all he can do. Now, if we think more globally about that, or more the whole Gospel of Mark, here's Bartimaeus, blind and off track. So while we're reading the gospel, is this a good description of the Jewish nation when Jesus arrives? He came to that which was his own, but his own did not receive him, right? The light shines in the darkness, but the darkness has not understood it. Get it? And so Israel, the people of God, who have the book and are supposed to be following it, they are not only off track, but they're blind. And throughout the gospel, he acknowledges that. They're blind. They're calling him Satan. God is standing among them doing amazing miracles, and they're saying, oh, that's the devil. How much more blind can you be? How much more off track can you be? And so he's by the roadside begging. And then a bunch of people are told him to be quiet. And if we thought of this in terms of what's going on in the gospel, out of everything Jesus is doing, anybody who would come to him, well, there's a lot of pressure not to, isn't there? Like, I don't know if Mark says it, but we know when they're trying to kill Jesus, when they're conspiring to kill him, at one point, it's just, nobody wanted to talk about Jesus because at any point, if you did, you might be in trouble. And also we find out about Joseph of Arimathea, who was a disciple of Jesus, but secretly for fear of the Jews. So this is going on. Jesus is teaching. He's trying to help. Anybody who would come to him, they're being discouraged from going to Jesus. They're being held back. And if we go further into the early church, you think about it, as the church is first predominantly Jewish, as the gospel goes out to all the Jews, isn't there a lot of pressure saying, no, don't go to Jesus? Right? So it looks like all of this is going on in this little story. So many try to prevent him. But here's what I think is the great irony of the story. This guy, blind Bartimaeus, He has the clearest vision of anybody in the gospel. Until the guy, the Gentile who's standing at the cross, who sees Jesus on the cross. And what does he say when Jesus is crucified? Surely this is the Son of God. It's interesting that, the Gentile is the one who really makes the confession at a time when everybody else would not. But right here, blind Bartimaeus, he sees better than anybody else in the gospel. He reminds me of the blind guy in John 9. Who sinned, this guy or his... This guy argues and fights with the religious leaders who are experts in the law, and he trounces them with the truth. I don't know about all that, but I know I was blind and now I see. You're not going to sway me off of that truth, right? But here, blind Bartimaeus, he calls Jesus Son of David. Why? What's he mean by calling Jesus Son of David? Well, they were expecting the one who's of David to take the throne, the Messiah. And you might say, well, Randy, the disciples called him Messiah too, and they really didn't see clearly yet. That's true. But he saw Jesus as Messiah, and let me ask you this. If you've got COVID, and it's really messing you up, and you're going to ask something in prayer, what do you ask for? Healing from COVID? That makes sense, doesn't it? God forbid, you have cancer. What do you ask for? Healing from cancer, right? Your ankle gets chopped off. What do you ask for? Heal my ankle. Don't let it hurt so much. Can I get an amen? You understand what I'm saying? What did he ask for? He asked for mercy. That's interesting. He's going to ask for blood. He's going to ask for his healing blindness. He is, but when he's calling out to Jesus, begging, Lord, a Son of David, have mercy on me. Shouldn't everybody in this gospel have been saying that? When Jesus goes into Jerusalem, shouldn't everybody there be saying that? And after the gospel goes out, shouldn't everybody who truly sees Jesus and hears the gospel be saying exactly that? This guy he's the paradigm for how it should go. For how a life should go from being shipwrecked and off the road in darkness to being restored to light. The pathway is Messiah, Son of David, King Jesus, have mercy on me. That's how it should go. And so he asked for mercy. The blind guy, he's got the best vision in the whole gospel. Right? And so Jesus stopped and said, call him. So they called him. Cheer up on your feet. He's calling you. If you spend enough time in the New Testament, you find out that if you are a Christian, then Paul's theology says you are not only a Christian, you are the called. You are the called ones. Many times he says that. And Jesus says, I call my sheep by name. Now, he didn't call him Bartimaeus that I know of, but he did call him. He called him. And the people who were saying, hey, shut up. You're nobody. Don't talk to Jesus. We don't care about you. Those people who were pretty ugly about it, it's interesting now they're saying, oh, he's calling you. And if we look in the gospel, when Jesus wants to feed 5,000, who does he have do it? Anyone remember? The disciples, right? Even when he goes into Gentile territory and he's feeding the 4,000, and the disciples don't even like those Gentiles, but who does he have do it? The disciples. It's like he puts in their hands. He gets them to do what they should have been doing. These guys should have been saying, hey, come to Jesus, come to Jesus. But they weren't. So he's like, hey, Jesus could have just said, hey, come over here. But he's like, no, you guys, hey, go call him. He's teaching something. And so Jesus called him. Now, again, think about this. This is his response to Jesus' calling. He throws his cloak aside. He jumps to his feet and he comes to Jesus. Do you hear, like, expectation? Do you hear faith? Do you hear excitement? You hear all that? And throwing his cloak aside. Is a cloak important to a person at that time, especially a person who might be homeless? The cloak is probably the only thing of value he owned. And the cloak, you need that to sit on out in the elements to beg. And at night you need that to cover up if you don't have a home. That's a pretty important worldly item. Worldly in the sense of the things we need in this world. When he threw it away, did he see where it went? So he can go back and get it? Why not? Well, he's blind. And so he tosses it away. How's he going to get that back? I think he must have had some confidence about something, don't you? He must have had some confidence about, I'm going to be healed. You get it? This is tremendous faith. Threw that thing aside. The most valuable of the world. It reminds me of the rich man who didn't. Jesus said, sell it all, give it to the poor, and come follow me. And he couldn't. And the disciples said, yeah, but we did. No, you didn't. You might have left your boats and your nets, but you didn't leave all that. Oh, I want to be the greatest. I want to be the top dog. You didn't leave that. But this guy left the most valuable thing he had, and he ran to Jesus. I love that. It's how everybody should do. So expectantly he came to Jesus in faith. And then Jesus says, what do you want? And he said, Rabbi, I want to see. And again, I just think it's irony. This guy sees better than anybody. But his words are what everybody should be saying. Like I said, people couldn't see Jesus. It's all throughout the gospel. His family thought he was nuts. Were they seeing Jesus? No. Right? The religious leaders said he was Satan. Called him a blasphemer. Did they see Jesus? No. The synagogue leaders kick him out. Did they see Jesus? No. Nobody can see Jesus. Even the disciples only saw him blurrily. Right? Is that a word? They only saw him in a blurry way. Nobody can see Jesus. And this guy says, I want to see. It's the words that should come out of everybody's mouth when they come to Jesus for mercy. It's an acknowledgement. I'm in darkness. I recognize I'm in darkness. And when he asks for mercy, I recognize I need mercy. I'm a sinner. I need mercy. I'm in darkness. I need light. And so these are the words on his lips. And so he knows he is blind and he desires to see. And then what does he do? Now that he can see, what does he choose to do with his life? Follow Jesus. And when it says follow Jesus along the road, that's kind of technical Christian language because it's the same word as follow Jesus on the way. And the way becomes a significant way of talking about the followers of Jesus. The way was a way of talking about the disciples, the groups who followed Jesus. They were followers of the way. And so here's this guy, and he follows Jesus. Now, Jesus said, go, your sights. He didn't say you have to come follow me in this way, but that's what this guy wants to do. He wants to follow Jesus. So I'm hoping as I went through this story of a blind guy, I'm hoping that I presented like a template for how it should go. And for those after the cross, all of us, we can look at the blind Bartimaeus and say, that is the pattern for all of us. Like, I want my life to be like that. I want to be brought out of blindness in the sight, and I want to follow Jesus, and I want to let go of worldly things. It should be the pattern for all of us. But here, as it functions as this hinge between these two parts of Mark, it looks like what it's doing is it's saying, here's what's right. This is what should have happened. Because it is true Jesus is the Messiah. It is true he's the Son of God. It is true he's bringing light and you guys are blind. And it is true he can heal you and bring you into the light and bring you back to God. All of that's true. And the response should have been, have mercy on us. Give us sight. Take our lives off of the crash side of the road and put us back on the path. That should have been everybody's response. And if it were, this is going to sound weird, there's no need for the cross if it were. It's like saying, well, if Adam and Eve hadn't sinned, then we'd still be in the garden. Well, you can talk about it all you want, but that's not what happened. And it's not what would have happened. It doesn't happen. And so we can say, here's the response that everybody should have done, but the fact is, we're about to enter into Jerusalem and find out humanity, Jew and Gentile, are just too far gone for that. They're just too far gone. The way Paul describes it is, when you were in this world, he says, you were under the power of the prince of the power of the air. The spirit now at work in those who are disobedience. There's a power of Satan, Paul talks about. That people who are in darkness are under that power. And so here's what should have happened, but it doesn't. And it tells us what does happen in Jerusalem, where we see God and we crucify him. It is just the indictment on humanity for how much we need a Savior, for how much we need the sacrifice of Christ, the cross of Christ. And that should drive us to humility, like Bartimaeus had, begging for mercy, like Bartimaeus did, begging for sight, like Bartimaeus did, so that we can follow Jesus on the road. So, I know that was a lot. It's a really incredible story placed in a weird spot. And so I hope I've done justice to that. I hope you've learned something today. But mostly, I hope that you are somebody who has recognized that, sin and darkness and everything has crashed your life. And if that's true, Jesus is still calling. He's still calling. He wants to heal you. He wants to give you back life. And you can respond to that this morning as we sing.